Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films. We're going to be taking a look at the Detroit Lions offensive line, specifically over the first three possessions when they use presumed starters Christian Mahogany, Juice Scruggs, Tate Ratledge, Blake Miller together along with Larry Borum. So I've got multiple plays queued up. I'm not going to use all 15 of the plays that those guys were on the field together. We'll obviously culminate with Josh Dobbs' 50-yard touchdown run to finish the third possession. First and 10 here, it's a 12 personnel grouping. And it's a power concept. So power to the front side. What causes problems for power out of an underfront can oftentimes be this 5 technique defensive end. I feel like Blake Miller and Tate Ratledge handle this quite well on the front side, meaning Blake Miller helps combo the 5 with the tight end, and you can see his eyes to the backside inside linebacker. Tate Ratledge has turned the defensive tackle, the shade 1 technique. Blake Miller has taken over the backside inside linebacker. The running back's job is to follow the pulling offensive lineman. In this case, it's Christian Mahogany. This 5 technique causes problems. That's why you put him there in an underfront. In addition, the edge defender, the outside linebacker, is able to escape from Conklin. The idea here is that this 5 technique is more difficult for a tight end to block. From a personnel standpoint, you're putting someone there who's big enough and strong enough to eventually be able to, or first of all, be able to hold up to this double team / combo initially, and then shed the tight end, and that's exactly what happens. I think the left arm is extended here a little bit, difficult for us to see. You can see he swims over the top. I'm talking about that defensive end / 5 technique that escapes from Brock Wright right there. From an offensive line standpoint, I feel like these guys are doing a pretty good job. They block things better. Washington is just in the correct look. If it's a 21 personnel formation, now granted this is 12 personnel, but one of the tight ends, Conklin, is lined up as a fullback. 21 personnel, under center run concepts to the strong side. The killer is the underfront, or what some people refer to as a slid 50. Here, Sailors is able to get 4 yards and set up a 2nd and 6. Of course, that play ends up being a strip sack. The forced fumble sack is caused by Amik Robertson, but the breakdown here is not off this side, in my opinion. Brock Wright, the tight end on the left-hand side, he's going to step to Amik Robertson, who's off-screen to our left. Amik was lined up over the number 1 receiver, and then he's stemming down. The whole defensive line or defensive front for Washington's going to slant to our right on the screen, the left-hand side from a commander's defense perspective. And then this edge defender is going to be rushing off the right-hand side. I feel like everyone handles their business pretty well up front here as far as the way things look on the right side. The breakdown obviously is Larry Borum. He's stepping a little bit to the left and then understeps with his left foot here in a moment. And that happens right as the edge defender who's stunting to the inside goes to cross his face. That's the guy, actually, I think that ends up recovering the fumble. Joshua Josephs, the rookie from Tennessee. This is on Borum, in my opinion. It's a play-action concept. If it weren't for Borum, everything else over here is set up really well, at least right now as I have the screen paused. There is 41 rushing to the outside of Blake Miller. I'm not saying it's Blake Miller's fault, but it certainly turns out to be a negative play for the Lions. I would attribute it, to be honest with you, entirely to Larry Borum's inability to handle that edge defender. We're talking about this guy here who's spot shadow. This is the same play from the all-22 angle, I should have said. So Robertson stemming down. He's going to blitz off the edge. That edge defender jumps to the inside. 41 takes this outside path. He's the guy that showed up late from the end zone angle. But 48 Josephs is the problem here. Being able to stunt underneath of Larry Borum. That causes Dobbs to peel out to the outside. And unbeknownst to him, Amik Robertson was on a corner blitz. Totally annihilates him, knocks the ball loose. It was a very violent hit. I think we're fortunate, Josh Dobbs was fortunate that he wasn't hurt on the play. As an aside, since they were bringing 6, it's another one of these 2 under, 3 deep coverages where oftentimes these underneath defenders are just responding to the quarterback's eyes and breaking in whatever direction he looks. We know how this one ends, right? Washington recovers the fumble, specifically Joseph's 48, the guy who, in my opinion, caused the initial pressure against Larry Borum. Ironically, it's him and Borum down here fighting over the football right now. We're going to move to the second possession, and this is a 12 personnel boot concept. Now, they're making it look like F counter to the weak side, the left-hand side of our screen. So what I mean by F counter is the right guard is illustrated by that orange line. He would be kicking out this edge defender on this opposite side, the left-hand side here. The tight end would be wrapping. That yellow line is not exactly the path that Conklin is taking. I kind of exaggerated it a little bit, so you get the idea that he would be working up to the second level. He would be working off of all of the down blocks. And then Dobbs here, because it's not actually F-counter, it's a boot concept, he's working out to the right-hand side. Really nice job, in my opinion, of Blake Miller and Juice Scruggs on the front side of this. So what I mean when I say front side is to the right-hand side of our screen. You're going to kind of lose Scruggs a little bit here, perspective of him, because I'm zooming in, but we're focusing on, really, to be honest with you, Blake Miller and Tate Ratledge. I feel like Miller does a really nice job when he's able to stay flat to the line of scrimmage, or relatively flat, and in this case, just get out to the outside on that defensive end / defensive tackle. Dobbs off the play fake is trying to get out to the right, so it's okay that this defensive tackle has beat Scruggs underneath, because remember, keep in mind that Dobbs is going this way, so it's what you want as far as if you've got to lose to either side, if you've got to allow any penetration at all, you want it to be on the back side. So I feel like Scruggs did a nice job in particular because this is the guy who causes the pressure, and he has Scruggs out leveraged. With Ratledge pulling and getting out of here to the left-hand side of our screen, Scruggs has got to essentially reach this nose technique, shade, one technique, whatever you want to call him, and he does so. Like I said, this is not a loss from a Scruggs perspective, nor is it one from a Blake Miller standpoint. Nonetheless, it still only goes down as a 3-yard gain. Washington's defense, obviously, in the beginning of the game, was really swarming. We've moved forward 2 plays here. It's a 1st and 10, another run concept to the right-hand side of the Lions' offensive line. Now, this is a solo inside linebacker look. Sonny Styles has walked up to the field, to the left-hand side of the Lions' offense, I should say, and everyone is working to the right from a Detroit perspective. The offensive line, the running back as well. My guess is that Small, the running back, must be reading and responding to these 2 defensive tackles, one or both of them, how they play it, with the tight ends double teaming the edge defender. Obviously, it looks like there's a pretty big lane here, right, if you want to be simplistic with your reaction. But sometimes at the moment that the running back is taught to make his decision, it just doesn't look like it's there. Nonetheless, I feel like Ratledge and Miller and Scruggs are getting some horizontal, lateral movement, if you will. Just no vertical push. There's no ability to take these guys off at this angle such that Small, the running back, has a longer period of time, a bigger window, if you will, to actually read and or make that cut. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. Yes, you're getting lateral movement, but in my opinion, what I know of it, you'd like to get, a little bit more back at like a 15, 18, maybe 20 degree angle as far as where those defensive linemen are moving. Mahogany is trying to take over and handle this defensive tackle, and there does look like, a small lane there. That's where Small takes it, ironically. Again, it's another 4-yard gain. Felt like Detroit, in this first half, a number of 4-yard gains. I will show you a 7-yard gain by a running back later. Running backs' production was a little bit misleading by the total yardage, 169 yards. I believe running backs had 118 yards on 30 carries overall on the day. Do like that it's Blake Miller who's staying on top of his guy to continue to press and try to gain some horizontal and lateral movement and just get some final push. As far as game flow goes, this is a somewhat innocuous play. It's a 2nd and 6. A similar stunt or blitz to what Washington ran earlier. So first of all, the 2 guys on the right-hand side of the screen, they're both going to drop out. One is an edge defender. One, I believe, is a safety. So I'm using the One Sports Analyzer to annotate on the screen and just show player movement. But these 3 guys are all slanting to their left, our right-hand side of the screen, and you've got a nickel blitz off the edge. So I want you to pay attention for a moment. First of all, they handle it well from a Lions perspective. Small is definitely scanning here. I think that's 18 who lined up at nickel. Watch Small's head revert back and forth, looking for work, and in this case, he settles on the nickel DB, gives Dobbs time to throw the football. Got a pretty good pocket, right? Pay attention to Miller for a moment and keep this in mind a little bit later when I think he has trouble with a similar setup, So he's first going to check this edge defender, and then his helmet is going to go back to the inside and look to help out Ratledge. And in fact, Miller's going to collapse that defensive tackle so much that it almost knocks Ratledge off balance from him. You can see him looking at the edge defender and then realizes the edge defender's dropping, so he collapses that defensive tackle / defensive end. You've got a pretty good pocket from a Josh Dobbs standpoint. Borum handles the inside stunt a whole lot better than he did the last time with Joshua Josephs. Like I said, it's innocuous as far as the gameplay ends up being incomplete over the middle. Dobbs is a guy who, I don't want to say takes chances, but he recognizes things, number one, and there might be some balls thrown, as we'll find out here in a moment, that maybe other guys wouldn't let go of. All right, so here's the 3rd and 6 on the second possession that results in the interception. Obviously, to speak of throws that perhaps Josh Dobbs shouldn't have let go of. It's a mug look or a heavy pressure threat from Washington initially. 3 of these guys, however, are going to drop out, and it ends up being a 4-man rush. Detroit gives Dobbs a pretty good pocket. He's just unable to find anyone that he perceives to be open. You can see the pocket that is allowed for him here. It looks like there's a stunt occurring on the bottom side of our screen off the right-hand side, meaning a D-tackle getting upfield between Miller and Ratledge, and then this edge defender trying to perhaps loop underneath. I will give the end zone angle so you can see it, but Scruggs is aware of it. You can see he's peeling off to help out with that edge defender underneath. The running back would be for any potential blitzer in the opposite side A-gap, meaning opposite of Scruggs. So the stunt is going to come from this side between these two players. It's not exactly the path they take. This defensive tackle gets upfield. This guy stunts underneath. Scruggs will step to him and help, and the running back gets himself into the A-gap. So they protect things really well here, if you ask me. The running back helps out a lot with Mahogany. Mahogany had, I'm not sure exactly how to say the guy's name. He played with the Chiefs for a while. Omenyora, perhaps, but I could be wrong. Charles something. Number 90, he was a really good player with the Chiefs. Tore his ACL, in a game against the Ravens, an AFC Championship game, in fact, 2023, when he had a strip sack against Lamar Jackson. In any case, they're stunting there on that side as well. So you can see he's got a 2-hand swipe that he used on Mahogany. Mahogany, his shoulders are turned now perpendicular, and he's trying to then open his hips back up and get to the stunter. Fortunately, the running back is there to help Mahogany out. Borum is being pretty patient here, if you ask me. However, that's where some pressure does come from, or Dobbs perceives pressure in the end, because he starts rolling out to the right. 90 is able to get away from Borum eventually. I feel like you got some clear differences between Borum's capability in pass pro versus the rest of the guys that are on the field for these first 15 snaps. I guess this is where Dobbs is trying to go with the football. Martin, I didn't look at the play-by-play to tell us, who was being targeted, but it certainly appears that's where he's trying to go with the football. Clearly one that you'd like to have back. It is a 3rd down. Nothing else is available clearly for him to access, and it goes down as a poor decision, obviously, first of all, and then second of all, another turnover 2 possessions in. Again, I'm only breaking down the offensive line film as it pertains to these 5 guys playing the 15 snaps that they did, which is basically the first 3 possessions. Recall that the last time we saw this personnel group in this formation, 12 personnel, and then the tight end Conklin shift back into the backfield as a fullback, they ran power. Okay, power concept is basically a bunch of down blocks on the front side. So when I say front side, I'm talking about all of these blocks here being down blocks, trying to create a wall, essentially like this, such that these pullers and these kick-out blocks create a lane in between the wall for the running back to access. Okay, that's not what they run here, however. So I'm big on formations. I love talking about formations and the tendencies that flow from them. Number 1, number 2, a little bit Ben Johnson-esque to some extent, that Petzing was showing the same formation multiple times, but then using different sequences of plays, if you will, to combat or attack the defense. So the last time they ran the power concept, if you recall me talking about a 5 technique, this is not a 5 technique here. This is a 4. He's head up. And in my opinion, Blake Miller does a pretty good job on, basically, this is ISO. There is a combo nature to it between Scruggs and Ratledge, but it's not zone. You can call it duo lead if you want to, because the duo is normally characterized by both edge defenders being blocked, and that's what happens here off the left side with Borum and the right side with Brock Wright. This is just wind back ISO. This is, I mean, new names come up with stuff for football and multiple sports every year. By the way, sweeper is a pitch that's been around forever if you're a baseball fan or a pretend baseball fan like most people are. But in any case, it's a wind back zone where 28 is veering to the left-hand side of the offense first. That's why I had that red line going to the left. And then he's coming back. And the picture that I'm concerned about, or not concerned, that I would focus on is Mahogany's got a one-on-one, Miller's got a one-on-one. Remember, that guy was head up versus Mahogany, who's got an angle. This is a 3 technique outside shade of Mahogany, so he can step to him. This is more mano-a-mano, if you will, head up technique. You got to try to dig him out of there. And in this case, I think the announcers actually called it a 4-eye during the middle of the game. I would say it's really a 4. ISO block from Conklin on Chenal. And Scruggs and Ratledge kind of lose this defensive tackle at the moment that Scruggs goes to move up. But Small makes it work. It's an 11-yard gain, a very physical concept. Fun moment, fun play to try to break down. I'm all about formations, and like I said, that was the same formation, same personnel group, same timing, everything, but a different play out of it. Skipped forward a couple of plays here. This is going to be a 3rd and 5. It's complete to Cedric Wilson off the right side against Rasul Douglas, the veteran corner who plays, a little bit of everything, but in this case, he's lined up in the slot. From an offensive line standpoint, here they're helping out Borum with this edge defender. That's why the running back has a red line emanating from his feet to indicate that he's chipping that defensive end. And then I'm not a huge fan of using a slide for all descriptions of when offensive linemen shift together, but this certainly looks like one here to me. Blake Miller stepping out to the edge defender. He does take a blow to his chest and get upended for a moment, and then get, really, his left foot ends up kicking up pretty high in the air, which is not ideal, right? To have any of your cleats that high in the ground at all. Able to anchor down, however, just enough to give Dobbs this throwing lane to access for, like I said, Cedric Wilson, who unfortunately gets hurt on the ensuing play. Is a really nice pocket, if you ask me, and a job by these 3 guys here. And in addition, Miller settling down for a moment. Miller looked a little more shaky at times in this game on film than I perceived during the live watching. But in any case, a really nice job of anchoring himself down. From a design standpoint, credit Petzing and the staff for saying, okay, we're going to help this guy out. And in this case, these 4 guys are going to move in this direction. Granted, there's someone on the field making that call. One of the offensive linemen is making that call for how they're going to handle it. 4-man rush for Washington. Handled well. Dobbs just has to resituate slightly with his feet. Reorient. I wish the Ravens backup quarterback Tyler Huntley could learn that skill because he gets a little bit panicky, but they did face the Vikings this past weekend, who put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, obviously, but a really nice job, example of what Dobbs can do when he has time. And in this case, he hits Wilson, like I said, for a 17-yard gain. Still on the 3rd possession, the very next snap, in fact, it's going to be a play-action pass. Miller almost gets the running back annihilated here. In fact, he does really get stung hard. It's going to be by this nickel DB, 18 off the edge. Kennedy is the guy who went in motion, and he'll be the target here off of play action. It's a split zone pass pro concept, meaning all of the offensive line is moving to the right because they're making it look like split zone, a run play. The running back is also flowing in that direction. The tight end, Brock Wright, is going in the opposite direction. That's illustrated by this orange line here. And Miller, compare this to the play I showed you a little earlier today, where he was scanning with his eyes. Here, I think Miller's making an assumption. So he thinks he's going to go get this edge defender, but Washington is bringing the nickel off the edge on a blitz. And so when Miller hesitates to try to help out here, this nickel gets a free run and obliterates the running back Small. That's on Blake Miller, in my opinion. I don't know, how other people have broken it down, but based on my understanding, really that's a loss there, or a negative missed assignment, if you will, from a Blake Miller standpoint. Does create some pressure. Dobbs perhaps could get a better throw out here to Kennedy, in my opinion, to give him a chance to catch the football and perhaps go make someone miss and make a play, because there's a lot of space between Kennedy here and Sonny Styles. All right, the ensuing snap, a really nice play call from Drew Petzing, if you ask me, to go 11 personnel on 2nd and 10 to elicit the nickel group or nickel presentation from the Commanders, and then run the football. It's duo, right? 11 personnel duo, one of the most boring plays there is in football for me, but it works, right? It's something that's repeatable. In this case, here's the nickel defender. This is, if you don't know the play, where Blake Miller falls down and then gets back up like the Undertaker and then finishes off his block. It's duo, so you're getting double teams here, double teams here. You can see that Miller is on the ground. Double team / combo. But again, to try to figure out whether something is duo live speed, generally you're getting both edge defenders blocked. And that's a hint to let you know that we're offensively, we're isolating everything in here. And when you do it out of 11 personnel, you guarantee pretty much that the nickel is going to end up to the outside. So you have good angles to go get the nickel and the edge defender, and look at the numbers that you've got to the inside, right? You've got 2 offensive linemen versus 2 defenders here, 2 offensive linemen versus 2 defenders here, and then their running back. So what you've attempted to do is create a 5-on-4 in there to the inside. As long as you can get the edge defender and the nickel DB, who is the guy that makes first contact, by the way, as long as you can get them blocked or held off long enough, then you're looking at the opportunity at minimum to get 3 or perhaps 4 yards. It's a great job of Blake Miller. He actually slid another time in this game, so I wondered about his cleats, but in any case, you can see he gets back up quickly, takes the defensive tackle down off that combo. Him and Ratledge working together. Initially, Ratledge moves up, and as he's beginning to move up is the moment in time when Blake Miller loses his footing. Fortunately for Sailors, he sees it, and Blake Miller adjusts. It's a great job by Sailors. Like I said, 2nd and 10, 11 personnel duo. You're looking at, all you're trying to do there, I think, is set up a manageable 3rd down. And in this case, Drew Petzing probably got a little more than he expected. Sailors' jump cut helps him get 7 yards. All right, the last play that we'll analyze here, of course, is Josh Dobbs' 50-yard touchdown run on a zone read, 3rd and 3. Again, a really nice play call by Petzing, first of all. Second of all, the manipulation that he uses by inserting the tight end into the boundary. So, again, Washington is in their nickel front because it's 11 personnel. And by putting 3 into the boundary, meaning tight end is number 2, running back is number 3, off screen to our left is a wide receiver. So when I say 3 into the boundary, I'm talking about 3 eligibles. What that does is it kind of widens up the will linebacker, Sonny Styles. So they run zone, meaning everyone on the offensive line is working to the right, the same direction that the running back is going. And by putting the tight end into the boundary, you've widened up this edge defender. I'm talking about the tight end, Conklin here. If he weren't there, if he were over to the other side, then this edge defender would kick down, and he'd be in a little bit tighter alignment. Perhaps his feet would be in this area instead of 1.5 yards, perhaps even 2 yards wider. As a result, it makes the read even more clear. If that edge defender, is going to take the running back, he's got to violently step downhill and run down the line of scrimmage because he's been widened up. So really nice play call by Petzing, utilization of his personnel from a Josh Dobbs standpoint. Offensive line-wise, there's really not much to mention other than Blake Miller losing off the front side. I feel like his step just before here was perhaps too big and too presumptuous, if you will. If it had been a give read, this is a tackle for loss, or the running back Sailors is going to have to make someone miss. So what I'm talking about is what's happening here. This potentially could have been a give read with the running back going to his side. You can see the edge defender jumps to the inside. Miller's step is way too big here. I'm talking about not the next step here with his left foot, but okay, so his left foot's in the ground now. This next step covers too much ground, and with those cleats in the air, the edge defender is able to gain leverage to the inside. So just a poor step, if you ask me, from that left step standpoint. It didn't matter because the design of the play let Dobbs read the edge defender, and he's out, right? 50 yards. I'm not trying to be critical of Blake Miller too much, but I'm just telling you what I see on each individual play. There's 3 snaps here that I just didn't like. And just so you know, I was a huge fan of Blake Miller's from a college standpoint, his film at Clemson. In fact, I believe in one of my draft projection videos, I had him going to Detroit at 17, and I was really pleased that they got him, and I still am. I think it's a positive thing that they got those 4 guys out on the field together, left to right, Mahogany, Scruggs, Ratledge, and Miller. Quite obviously, they're going to be the starters. That's why they played, the same number of snaps. Who knows what we'll get in the third preseason game? My guess is we don't see those guys at all. Increasingly, to me, it makes sense for the third preseason game to just be something where, your third string guys play the most time, and you don't risk anything. But I know that there's different perspectives on that. In my opinion, the offensive line depth across the NFL is so thin, apparently, at least early in the season, that it doesn't make sense to risk injury to any of these guys if you've got them through the second week of the preseason. But, Dan Campbell, Hank Fraley, Drew Petzing, those guys might have a different perspective. Who knows? And selfishly, I would like to see them play in week 3 so I could evaluate it and watch some film on it, because it is sure fun to me. Having said all that, I do feel like, or wonder, speculate maybe, that offensive line play improves over the course of the season, whereas the defensive linemen perhaps are at a little bit of an advantage. If you say, well, that doesn't make sense, Coach, I will tell you that at the lower levels of football and even college as well, defenses always have an advantage early. They're attacking, they're playing downhill, they can be in multiple looks that the offense is not necessarily prepared for. In this case, obviously they knew they were going to play the Washington Commanders. I don't know how much time Detroit's offensive line or offense spent on the particular looks they were going to get. I feel like the offensive line that was put out there was a quality group. Of course, when you add Penei Sewell at left tackle, that really pushes them over the top. The idea is clearly that Blake Miller, anything he does struggle with early, he will improve upon as the season goes on. Ratledge, Scruggs, Mahogany, I felt like looked really solid as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was meant to be an exploration of the plays from a play-by-play standpoint, not necessarily making grand statements, because we only got 15 snaps to really evaluate. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments section. Number 1, please like the video. That really helps things perform better, helps the content perform better. And then finally, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at Detroit's offensive line from the Week 2 preseason game against the Commanders, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so other Lions fans can enjoy it as well. Appreciate you guys' time.